From aphrodisiac to nightmare, the flesh-eating bacterium that turns oysters deadly. What you need to know about the deadly foodborne pathogen Vibrio vulnificus. Vibrio vulnificus is a gram-negative, motile, curved, rod-shaped bacterium naturally found in warm marine and estuarine environments, particularly in brackish coastal waters. It belongs to the genus Vibrio and is related to Vibrio cholerae, the bacteria responsible for cholera. Vibrio vulnificus naturally occurs in marine environments and is concentrated in filter-feeding shellfish such as oysters, clams and mussels, where it multiplies within their tissues, causing no apparent harm to the mollusks. In humans, it can cause severe infections through the ingestion of raw seafood or exposure of wounds to seawater. It possesses virulence factors like a polysaccharide capsule, several extracellular toxins that allow it to invade tissues, and the ability to evade the immune system, which contribute to its high morbidity and mortality rates. Although rare relative to other foodborne pathogens, it accounts for 95% of seafood-related deaths in the United States due to its high virulence and rapid disease progression. Vibrio vulnificus infections in the United States have increased substantially over the past decades, with cases increasing eightfold from 1988 to 2018 along the eastern US seaboard and Gulf Coast. In 2025, there have been at least 57 confirmed cases across 11 US states, higher than in past years. For example, in the state of Louisiana, the number of cases is significantly higher than the average. So this year there have been 17 cases and 4 deaths, but usually there are 7 cases and 1 death during the same period. There have also been significant increases in cases of Vibrio vulnificus in Australia, with researchers noting an increase in wound infections from the bacterium in areas previously not susceptible during times of high rainfall and flooding. Foodborne infections of Vibrio vulnificus are usually associated with the consumption of raw or undercooked seafood, particularly oysters harvested from warm waters. The consumers most at risk are people with compromised immune systems, particularly those with chronic liver disease, cancer, diabetes, HIV, thalassemia, or those taking immunosuppressive medications. Additional risk factors include recent stomach surgery or medications that reduce stomach acid. Men are reported to have higher susceptibility compared to women. Individuals with high iron serum levels are at heightened risk, a phenomenon explained by the influence of iron availability on bacterial growth and virulence. Symptoms typically develop quickly, often within 24 hours of exposure. For foodborne infections, early gastrointestinal symptoms include vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal cramps. From the gastrointestinal tract, Vibrio vulnificus can enter the bloodstream, causing a severe infection known as septicemia or sepsis, which results in fever, low blood pressure, that's septic shock, and painful blistering skin lesions. Wound infections caused by Vibrio vulnificus may cause necrotizing fasciitis, a flesh-eating infection, which destroys tissue and may necessitate amputation. Mortality rates are high. About 20% of infected individuals die, sometimes within 48 hours of symptom onset, particularly if they have predisposing medical conditions. Control methods for Vibrio in seafood are difficult. Oyster depuration, which is holding live oysters in clean water to allow them to purge contaminants, works well on bacteria that are found in oysters' gastrointestinal tracts, such as environmental contaminants like fecal coliforms. However, it doesn't work well on bacteria that exist naturally in the marine ecosystem like Vibrio. Since the bacterium is more prevalent when waters are warmer, harvesting areas are monitored. Some oyster-growing regions enforce harvesting restrictions during periods when water temperatures are too high. For example, the state of Florida has a Vibrio control management plan, which requires aquaculturists to adhere to time temperature guidelines, including time of harvest, and speed of putting the shellfish into the cooler after harvest. The plan also includes oyster tagging, which allows the shellfish to be traced to the lease and parcel to establish a chain of custody and allow for traceback if an illness occurs. Seafood sellers should purchase shellfish only from reputable sources and check that they are properly labelled with licensing or registration information as required in the area. They should also educate consumers on safe consumption practices, strongly advising against eating raw or undercooked oysters, especially for individuals with chronic illnesses or weakened immune systems. Cooking oysters to an internal temperature of at least 63 degrees Celsius or 145 degrees Fahrenheit is recommended by the US CDC, while the European Food Safety Authority recommends they be cooked to an internal temperature of 90 degrees C for 90 seconds. Takeaways for food professionals and consumers. Vibrio vulnificus is a deadly foodborne pathogen that causes system-wide sepsis when it passes from the intestinal tract of susceptible individuals who have consumed raw or undercooked seafood, particularly shellfish. It's naturally present in temperate and warm shellfish growing environments and is not associated with environmental contamination. As such, it's difficult to remove by traditional oyster depuration methods. Control methods include limiting harvest areas and times to avoid the warm water conditions favoured by the pathogen, prompt refrigeration after harvesting, purchasing seafood only from reputable sources, educating consumers about the risks of consuming raw seafood, and cooking to the correct internal temperature. In short, Vibrio vulnificus is a marine bacterium that causes wound infection and foodborne illnesses. It has a mortality rate of 20%. The prevalence of infection is increasing due to warming waters from climate change. Control methods include harvesting shellfish only when water temperatures are low and cooking. And as always, I've included a list of sources in the email and the post, and you can get access to those through the show notes if you're listening on a podcast app.